to understand than to be understood. How many of you have had classes in public speaking? How many of you had classes in listening? Good for you.
Does being an older sister count?
Well, practice, maybe not a class, but that does involve practice. There are keys to listening, and school has sadly given you a bad set of skills. Oh, it works great in the classroom. Don't get me wrong. You have been well schooled in how to listen in a classroom. But it's not the same kind of listening that you need to do as a leader. Any musicians in here? Okay. You have the bass clef and the treble clef. Yes? That's how I kind of want you to think about listening when you realize what it is you have to listen for. In school, you've learned to listen for content. What is this theory? Who said it? What date was it said? What is the key point to this paragraph or this novel? Who are the main characters? That's content. That's what tends to go in your notes. But did you write in your notes, oh man, my teacher, they were just crazy in class. They looked like they were so happy, I just couldn't believe it. Do you write that stuff in your notes? I don't think so. But when you are listening as a leader, you're not just listening to content. It's not just the treble clef. You're listening for emotion. And we're going to call that the bass clef. Because the truth of the matter is, human beings are emotional animals. As much as we try to claim that we are the most logical creatures on the planet, the truth is we are not. We are governed by emotion. Just ask the people on Madison Avenue who construct all those commercials to get you to buy stuff. They're appealing to your emotional base. As a leader, you have to learn to listen at both levels. And quite frankly, I want you to focus more on the bass clef than the treble. I want you to focus more on the emotion than the content. That's hard. That is not how you were trained as a listener. But that needs to be how you're trained as a leader. We're going to spend some time on habit 5 using several videotapes. We're going to hear about what this thing called autobiographic listening is. And you're going to see that on pages 106 and 107. And then you're going to see 2 case studies, if you will. One played out horribly, and the other played out with a much surprise ending when listening was done correctly. And then we're going to take another piece apart as we learn about how to then be understood. Habit 4, think win-win, was the first habit of the public victory. We're now learning how to work with other people. We have to think win-win. And the first way we're going to find out what the other person needs is to seek first to understand. When you're in a conversation with someone, and it could be a super happy day, or it could be a super tough day, and you sit down to share your day with someone else, and let's say it was a tough day, and the minute you start telling someone how tough it was, they start launching into everything you should have done differently. Dun, da, dun, da, dun, da, dun, da, dun. How does that make you feel?
Makes your day worse.
Makes your day worse? What else? Did I hear frustrated? Yes? What else?
Angry.
Angry? And what you say to yourself is, they didn't fill in the blank. Pardon?
They didn't listen.
They didn't listen. They didn't hear me. They didn't listen. Because if they really heard me, they wouldn't be telling me what to do. Do you have problem slayers in your life? You know, the ones who write in and think they're being the white knight. Oh, I can fix that. You just got to do this, this, and this. But you already know how to do this, this, and this. And you didn't need a recipe book on this, this, and this. You just needed to feel heard. Don't you want to be that kind of leader? Don't you want to be that kind of teacher? One who knows how to listen? Because when you're in a difficult situation in a parent-teacher conference, when you're in a difficult situation with two students who can't seem to get along, when you're in a difficult situation with your boss, the principal, or a colleague, this skill set, you are going to draw on over and over and over. When you're sitting down with the other party, many times your first fear is, are they going to hear what I have to say? Both parties sit down with that fear. And then what would happen if you were to say, you go first? Could you even do that? Could you muster the self-control to say, you go first? Because you got all this stuff you want to put out there because it's so important and you know you're right. Well, you think you're right. What would happen if you let the other person go first and you, instead of sitting there calculating, well, I'll say this back to that, and then I'll defend it with this, and then I'm going to say that, and that. And instead of doing that, you just listened. And you listened at the emotion level. Not saying you totally ignored the content, but you really concentrated on the emotion level. And you were able to say back to them what you thought you heard them say. How is that other person going to feel? How would you feel in that situation?
Glad that someone listened.
Glad that someone listened. Respected that someone listened. And relieved because you got it all out there. And then you know what happens when someone is relieved and appreciative and respected? What kind of listener do they become for you? Oh, they become a better listener for you because you just demonstrated the ultimate respect for them. Their stress levels down, they got it all out, they know that you understood what they had to say, and they are more likely to listen to you with the same respect. And that's how you honestly understand the other person, and then they get to understand you. What a gift. And the order is so important. Seek first to understand. Now, the skill set. Diagnose before you prescribe. Let's watch.
You study every field of human endeavor. You study every problem-solving process in every profession without an exception. And you'll always find to understand precedes action. To understand precedes judgment. Lawyers go through a discovery process, often even prepare the case for the opposing counsel. Doctors diagnose before they prescribe. Teachers pre-assess before they teach. It's habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. The tendency in almost all people initially is to want to be understood, or if they do seek to understand, they seek with the intent to reply, with the intent to in some way influence, to some way bring the person about, to accomplish their own end, not with the intent to understand. Can I borrow your glasses for a second?
You'll love these. These will really change your paradigm.
These are more powerful? My friend, you've liked these, haven't you?
A long time.
For a long time. We're sure they'll help you.
Whoa.
Whoa! My friend, try harder. I mean, really give those lenses the college try. That help you now?
No.
No. This is the company way, Anna. They look good on you, Anna. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah.
See, we all feel they look good on you. Anna, daughter, your mother and I, for many years, have distilled the wisdom of our life for your benefit. That's intergenerational wisdom too, Anna. We've learned it from before. And we put them in the form of those lenses. We've done our best. Anna, you like them now?
They're great, but I still can't see.
She's got some integrity. Usually people capitulate, but usually I don't give them that strong of a lens. When they capitulate, I then move to the next person. How do you like them?
I like them.
Are those tears of gratitude? There you are, my friend. You can see again. I can feel your anxiety level. Now, when I'm convinced I'm right, when you're convinced you're right, do we really want other people's opinions? How many of us, when we are in that mental state, use those methods? You may not use the more extreme ones. You may just simply use the more common ones. Try harder. Just think positively. It'll make the difference. If we really start listening, you may be influenced, particularly if our security lies in being right. If you really seek to understand, you run the risk. You're vulnerable. Can you begin to get a better understanding as to why we have the private victory of 1, 2, and 3? But almost everyone is anxious to prescribe glasses for eyes they have not diagnosed, because if they really engage in a meaningful dialogue with me, they become vulnerable themselves. It exposes sometimes their own center, their own need to be right, their own need to give wise counsel, to shape up this son, this daughter, this employee, even this customer. You don't know what you need. We know what you need. We'll tell you.
Diagnose before you prescribe. Professionally, that's what we do as teachers. But do we really carry that out in everything we do as teachers? Do we get to understand what the backgrounds of our students are? What their family life might be like, and how that can influence their performance in the classroom? Have we truly listened? Do we understand the history of our schools or the neighborhoods where the schools exist, so that we understand the community's feelings about the school where we are? All of that comes into play. Listening. Not with the intent to reply, but with the intent to understand. Sometimes I think we become afraid of trying to understand because it will be misinterpreted as agreement. You know, if I could say what it is you're thinking, I don't mean like read your mind, but, you know, reinterpret what you've said to try to understand what it is. Oh gosh, somebody might think then I agree with them. I could never just repeat that. People would think that was me. But all I'm doing is saying, here's what I heard you say. Did I get that right? That doesn't mean you agree. It just means you're trying to understand. And I know, as sure as I'm standing here, that if you have read a headline about anything happening in our country or in our world in the last week, you can point to a dozen situations where people are not listening to each other. How poorly we use this habit as leaders. Listening and understanding does not mean agreement. They are two different things. but they certainly can go a long way towards coming to some kind of a win-win solution if we at least start with understanding. Autobiographical responses tend to be a common way that we think about how we're going to respond to what the other person says, as opposed to just trying to get clear about what it is they said. We feel like we have to slay their problem or explain what they did wrong. Or, gosh, if I were in your shoes, I'd do this. And on page 107, the key areas that we think we have to go to are giving advice and probing. Now, I don't mean clarifying a few things. That's all right. But probing, you know, like you're the prosecuting attorney, drilling down in there, that's not so good. Interpreting what the person says, not in their words, but through our own filters, not so good. And passing judgment or evaluating on what they chose to do. Don't go there. We're just seeking to understand. We are learning to do something called empathic listening. EMPATHIC, empathic listening.
One thing that gets in the way of meaningful communication is autobiographical listening. This means that we filter what others say through our own story, our own experiences, our biases, prejudices, and all of our values. You see, when I listen autobiographically, part of my story gets added to your story. And then when I respond, I base it on my own frame of reference. I might ask questions, or I might agree or disagree. I might decide it's necessary to counsel you, or try to solve the problem or fix the situation. So with the best of intentions, I can end up leading the conversation. And even worse, I don't hear what you're really trying to say. Autobiographical responses fall into 4 categories. Probing, asking questions. Evaluating, like agreeing or disagreeing. Advising, that is giving counsel. Or interpreting, or trying to figure a person out or to analyze them. But don't misunderstand. Autobiographical responses can be very appropriate, especially when the emotional bank account with another person is high. But when real understanding and clarity are needed, and when the problems are very emotional, autobiographical responses only get in the way. What's the impact of autobiographical responses in the next segment?
Doing your homework?
What's the point? I'll never use it.
Of course you will.
Classical Greek drama. Not likely.
No one gets anywhere without an education these days.
Really? Joe's got a full-time job and he's already a manager. He has his own car, his own apartment. And me? I'm not that interested in this.
But you're interested in this.
Absolutely. I just think it's a waste of time to learn something you'll never use in the real world. When I could be out working, getting a real experience, making money.
So you want to quit? Think about your sister. She struggled in school, but she worked hard, and now
she's the queen of college and probably become a brain surgeon and end global warming. Not my sister, Mom.
I know it's hard right now, but all the effort will be worth it. When I was your age,
you wanted to join a rock band and travel the world, but instead you chose hard work and all this.
You just have to hang in there.
No, I don't.
Fine. Quit. Move in with Joe. You think life is so wonderful, so easy? Maybe then you'd appreciate what you have here.
Fine, maybe I will.
Fine.
of things did you see that possibly led you to believe that she was not exactly doing empathic listening?
He's tired of hearing the same stories over and over again, but that's all she'll ever say.
Yeah. The first story that she launched into was?
His
His
sister?
sister's story.
Yeah, the Queen of College, right? Okay. The second story? Her own. Join a rock band. She didn't even have to go beyond the first line, and he could just tell it from heart. You could watch the eye roll going, here we go again. Good. What else? Did he actually say he wanted to quit school?
No.
But she said it.
She gave him the idea.
She made an assumption, didn't she? Oh. And then the whole thing ended pretty badly, didn't it? You seen arguments like that before, or maybe even participated in one? You get to the end of it and you're going, man, I didn't think that was going to happen, but wow, here we are. No better than when it started, and maybe even worse. She did probing, she did judging and evaluating. She made all the mistakes. So this next film, we're going to watch the same situation, and you're going to be surprised at what the ending really is.
Too often, we listen to others with the intent to reply. Empathic listening is an altogether different way of being. It is listening with the intent to understand, with the intent to get to the bottom of an issue. It's one of the most important habits any leader can practice. It's the key to effective results in interpersonal relationships, in teams, and in organizations. When we listen empathically, we try to understand the other's point of view with no judgment, with no preconceived end in mind. We simply seek to understand. We temporarily suspend our view long enough to see the world through their eyes. Only people who are secure enough with themselves, those with a firm grasp of the private victory, have the capacity to listen in this way. It's important to note that empathic listening is not about agreeing or disagreeing. It's not about solving or fixing or figuring someone out. It's simply about understanding another's point of view and feelings. Watch what happens when you listen with the sole intent to understand.
Doing your homework?
What's the point? I'll never use it.
Sounds like you're frustrated.
I'm just sick of school. It's pointless. I mean, look at Joe. Dropped out of school, has a full-time job, has his own car, his own apartment, and I'm stuck here trying to decipher some ancient Greek play no one even cares about.
So you think Joe's got it better?
I mean, Joe's always bragging about how much better his life is now that he doesn't have to worry about teachers bossing him around or everyone telling him what to do.
Joe's got a lot of freedom.
Yeah, I mean, at least he's doing something. He has to work late nights so he can't hang out with us as much or go to the games, but at least he's going somewhere.
So he's missing out on a lot, but at least he's moving forward.
I I just can't get this stuff. Dad's gonna kill me. You won't tell him, will you?
You worried about what Dad will think?
It's just he always talks about how education is important and how he expects me to go to college, but how can I do that if I can't do this?
So, you're worried that if you don't understand this, then you won't get in college either.
I know I can't. They gave me a reading test, right? On the reading test, I scored on the 9th grade level, Mom. The 9th grade. I'm a senior.
And that worries you.
No matter what I do, I just don't get it. And I know Dad will know that I'm flunking out. I don't want to quit school, but I don't know any way out.
You don't want to drop out of school, and you don't want to disappoint Dad.
Right. So what will I do?
I'm not sure. But I'm sure we can figure things out.
All you need to do is reflect what they feel and say in your own words. And because it's so simple, we often underestimate its power. If you don't believe me, just try it tonight with someone important to you. Just simply reflect what they feel and say in your own words. Remember now, listen with the intent to understand, not to reply. It's the key to opening up people's hearts and getting to the real issue.
So did he share the real issue the first time? You ever been in a conversation with someone and you had something really critical to share, but you didn't know how they would respond, and you were scared? And so you sent up a trial balloon. Something maybe vaguely related, but not really. Just to see how they respond. Ever done that? Ever had anybody do that to you? We do those things.
Hypothetically speaking type thing.
Yeah, it could be hypothetical. In this situation, because he was afraid he wasn't going to go to college. Well, let's talk about Joe and the fact that Joe's not in school anymore. And, because that could be me down the road, because I'm frightened and I'm not sure I'm going to get there. So let's just see what happens. If I launch this out there, then we'll see if I'm going to tell him about this bad test score. And that is what he did. But notice this time she didn't get all reactive and emotional about the thought that her son might be dropping out because his friend had dropped out. Instead, they just had a pretty even conversation. Oh, Joe has more freedom now. Oh, Joe's enjoying what he does, moving forward, still might not be able to hang out as much. She just kept the conversation focused on some of the content, but most of the emotion of what he was talking about. She didn't react. She didn't add her emotion to it. And then he does the, I just can't get this. And he gets up and he walks out of the room and he goes out to the balcony. In this case, he left the door open. So that was an invitation to what? To continue the conversation and for her to follow. What if he had shut the door? What was that a signal for?
Ending the conversation.
Ending the conversation or pausing it. I need some space. That's what that's a signal for. So she would have been wise to not follow him immediately, to give him some time. Maybe in a few minutes, she could have tapped or cracked the door open and said, "Whenever you're ready, I'm here. Be happy to listen some more." Back away. Some people need space, and you need to give it to them. But in this case, the door was open. She followed. He dumped out all he was afraid of. Afraid Dad is going to think I'm not going to make it. Oh, you won't tell Dad, will you? Did she promise not to tell Dad? No, she didn't, because she couldn't have kept that promise. Instead, she came back with, "You don't want him to know?" She didn't promise not to tell him, but she did come back and connect with his fear about his father's high value of education and that he wasn't going to live up to his dad's expectations. And in many cases, when you want to share how you're feeling about something, you may already know what to do. You don't need a problem slayer. But in this case, he didn't know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, and someone's being a kind listener, you're going to ask for help, if that's who you want help from. And he did. Now, I'm sure she was as shocked to hear about this test score. Did she have a ready solution? No. But she said, we will work on this. We'll figure it out together. Now, he still looked worried, but that's an honest response. It's like, whoa, this is news. I don't have a pre-planned answer, but we'll find it. Much different reaction than the previous one, which is, well, go ahead and move in Joe if that's what you want, right? Very different. All because she took the time to connect empathically with him. What were some other differences about where she was when she had this conversation at the beginning?
She wasn't anywhere near him in the first one. In the second one, as soon as she realized he was worried, she came over and got down with him at his level. She was standing, he was sitting in the first one as a display of social dominance. Now they're on the same level.
Good observation. Yes, the difference in the two films, she came around and sat with him. Same eye level. In the first film, she stayed standing. Yes, that was her parental dominance. I'm the mom, you're the son. You know, I have authority here and I'm going to stay standing because that's where I see my comfort is in authority. As opposed to I'm going to sit down with you at your level because I want to hear you. I want to listen. Really important to take note of all of those things. Good job. All right, I have 2 more videos. I know. And although these are more along the lines of a business meeting, I know that by watching these, you can put yourself in the picture of a parent-teacher conference. And these customers are not too happy, but this person is using language to not only empathic listening to hear, but clarifying in I statements to help connect with them and understand and bring them all to an understanding. And I'm going to play them back to back.
John? Liz, how are you? Good to see you.
Frank, as you know, your company's contract is up for renewal in the next quarter. We've been pleased with your work in the past.
Glad you've been happy.
Well, we're not actually that happy. Over the last quarter, 4 shipments have been late. We're scrambling to deliver to customers. You deliver late, our whole operation grinds to a halt.
It just seems like you're having a hard time keeping pace with the higher volume.
First of all, I'd like to apologize. It sounds like you need your components delivered on time and we've let you down. And now you're concerned about our ability to meet the increased demand. Is that right?
Right. We asked you here today to get some answers and to reevaluate whether we should keep working with you moving forward.
Thanks for bringing me in to discuss this. Just to make sure that I'm understanding your perspectives, can I ask a few questions? John, you said that you were upset that we were delivering late. Can you tell me more about how that happened?
Well, we're growing a lot this year. And we put in an order, we only got half of what we expected. So when I called to find out about it, I was told you have a 6-week lead time on this new order. So now we're scrambling to try and fill customer orders on time. It's been particularly bad this quarter.
You said you were growing a lot. Can you tell me more? What kind of growth do you forecast?
We're going to be growing easily 25 to 30% over the next 3 quarters.
Wow. Will that be constant or will that fluctuate?
Hard to say. We anticipate steady growth, but last quarter surprised us.
And we need to be able to respond, to be more agile.
When you say agile, tell me exactly what that means to you.
Well, in some cases, we're 6 to 8 weeks out filling customer orders, but to remain competitive, we really need to get that down to 1 to 2 weeks.
What I'm hearing is that you need your components delivered on time and you need to respond to your customers faster. Outside of concerns over our ability to deliver components on time and to meet the increased volume, do you have any other concerns?
No, quality is good.
No, we're pleased once it gets here.
Okay, let me play the next one.
Outside of concerns over our ability to deliver components on time and to meet the increased volume, do you have any other concerns?
No, quality is good.
No, we're pleased once it gets here.
Thanks for helping me understand where we've not been meeting your needs. Can I just say that it's our intent to be a really reliable partner and to help you succeed and grow. I think I understand where this is breaking down. As I look at your orders over the last quarter, it looks like they spike here and here.
These are our rush orders.
Right. These are the projections I received at the beginning of the quarter.
But these are actually half the actual order.
Right, so what I'm hearing from you today is that you're expecting 30% growth, and we need to have the necessary inventory. If it's okay, I'd like to explore ways for us to communicate data more efficiently so we can better anticipate your needs.
Yes, I think we can update our forecasting data more frequently so you can better gauge future orders.
Yes, I agree.
If we have that data, we can guarantee you a 2-week lead time. Will that work for you?
I think that will work. Let's write that into the new contract.
Great.
All right, picture parents. They're not happy.
I'm just gonna throw this out here. Where I worked at before, meetings did not go like that.
Okay? But you notice, he apologized, took ownership, asked clarifying questions to try to understand. Sure, he uncovered things they had done wrong, and he found some things that the customer hadn't been probably as clear about what they needed, and that their growth surprised them. So, hard to respond for everybody. So, he shared what he knew. He was prepared to be like you, meeting with parents and turning around and having the grade book and samples of assessments and tests and other kinds of feedback from your students, and being able to share that with the parents and trying to get them back on board as a team with you to help that child grow. Can't you translate that language? Absolutely. Tell me more. Help me understand. Thank you for bringing me on board. I'm sorry there's a problem. None of that admits guilt, does it? But it certainly conveys respect and a want to make it better. And that's what you want to communicate. And having some of those phrases under your belt. Understanding that it's okay to let the other person share like he did. They vented what they had to say. It wasn't so good. And you can tell, and she was a little more calm. He was pretty upset. But in the end, they're working forward on a new contract. And that's where you want to be. Good listening skills. Opportunities to use clarifying statements to get understanding by all parties on the content. I didn't say throw the content questions away, but you gotta do that second. You gotta address what people are feeling first. And then the I messages will help me understand. I see this. Tell me how you see it. Very, very important. You have been a wonderful, wonderful class today. You get the gift of 11 minutes. Go forth, have a great weekend, and I'll see a lot of you on Monday. Thank you so much.